Welcome in to a brand new episode of a whole new Ballgame podcast. I'm Alex Fuse. Vinnie Pasquantino is here with us. And Vinnie, we got a phenomenal episode today.
We do have a phenomenal episode, and I think what I'm planning on doing is going back to look at all of our recordings that we've done before and see how we introduce each show. And do we call interviews good, great, phenomenal, fantastic? I'd like to see the words that we use to describe our interviews, because what if we have one that we think's bad or something? What are we going to lie to our people? I mean,
We don't have bad interviews. It's just simple.
I would agree. I'm just saying, there's only so many words that we can use to describe interviews without repeating words. So I'm sure we've repeated already. I'm sure we'll repeat in the future. It's just definitely something to think about.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, I agree.
Yeah. But Alex, we are recording this on Wednesday. It is Wednesday the 20th.
Yep.
And two big things. Two for me. One, UFC event was this morning, which was awesome. It was nice to wake up 8 a.m. There's fights on, so that was nice. And then two, Inauguration Day, Alex. Big day in the United States of America. So what's your vibe up there in New York? What's your vibe up there with the inauguration happening today?
It's always, no matter who you voted for, whatever, Inauguration Day is one of my favorite days every 4 years, because it kind of represents just how great our country is. No matter what happens, it's that peaceful transition of power. And I think that is what America's all about at the end of the day. It's about special feeling that no matter what happens, the people have their voice, and that's what democracy is all about. And it's always great. It's always great to. Today was, we've been through a lot of history in the last year. And today, of course, the first woman to be elected and officially installed as vice president of the United States of America. History on January 20th, 2021. It's a great day.
Yeah, I still remember exactly where I was in 2009, I suppose, when Obama was elected.
Yeah.
I was at Woolridge Elementary School in Virginia, and I think every member of the student body went to the gym and watched his inauguration. And I just remember, I could go back to that now and think about it and think about how cool that moment was. And we've lived through a lot of history this year. And today was just another step in that. I mean, if you know how everybody when they're little says, I'm gonna be president one day. And today was just another barrier that was taken down. I mean, for any girl that's ever said it before, they were never able to look into the White House and see a president that was a female or a vice president that was a female. And today was that day, right? I mean, we got that today, and that's just a really, really cool thing that happened in the country. Regardless of who you voted for, whatever, that's not what this is about, but just a really cool moment that I know that I'm soaking in, and it's just really cool to be a part of it.
And I think too, no matter, again, who you voted for, it's who's elected now, right? It's who is the president and who the vice president is. And that's just a simple fact. And I think if we got to get back on track with things, and no matter who you voted for, it's just, you got to hope for the best of the country. And, I think it's going to be, today, again, history made today.
It's something people study for sure, especially this whole past year is just been a crazy year that we're living through right now, that in 10, 20 years will be literally in the history books for people to study. That is a fascinating topic, Alex, by the way. How do they determine what to put in history books? That's what I want to know. Because at what point do people stop learning about anything, because you can only learn so much in a year.
When you start writing a history book, right? Like,
yeah,
it writes itself, especially if you look at, January 20th, 2020 to January 20th, 2021. That can be a 3 textbooks.
Well, if you think about your generic history class, pretty much at whatever age, right? You look at the Revolutionary War, when you're talking about American history, you look at the Revolutionary War, you look at the Civil War, you look at Reconstruction, then you go, and I know I'm being super generic and that there's way more involved to what I'm saying, but then you probably move on to the Great Depression, and then and then you go on to the Cold War and World War One, two. It's like, well, something's got to get out of there, I suppose. I mean, that took us through the whole year learning through all that stuff, and now, I mean, we didn't even learn about like 9/11, things like that, and I can only imagine in 20 years what what is going to be in those textbooks and what are they going to not learn about. I guess
Right.
we'll just see when we have our own kids of ourselves, Alex, and
No,
we see what they're learning.
that's a scary thought.
It's a
Yeah.
terrifying thought. It is an absolutely terrifying thought.
They're going to find this podcast somewhere and be like,
Well, I mean, wouldn't you like to think that we're still going?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, sorry for anybody who came to this specifically to listen to Joel's interview. That's something that's super important to me is even, this is not a political podcast by any means, but we are living in history today. So I felt like it was important to say something about it. So that's what I got.
Yeah. No, I agree. I absolutely agree. And like you said, Joe Penfield, Joel, you've known Joel longer than I have.
Mm-hmm.
And, we got into it with him about why he loves what he does, why he does it, what got him interested, and what he still wants to do. Like he said, he's only 24 years old, and yet he's a dad, and he still has a lot of things he wants to accomplish. So, why don't you explain who Joel is a little bit more?
So, okay. Yeah. So I guess the word I would probably use would be freelance for Joel. And that is without me really knowing what the word freelance means, but it's what um, but he has a podcast with the Royals Farm Report and with Oklahoma State as well. With the Oklahoma State things, I don't know as much there, but I do know that he worked in some capacity with the Oklahoma State baseball team, and with the Royals Farm Report, they're looking at minor leaguers that are in the system, everything like that, and kind of giving exposure to minor leaguers within the system through their Twitter, and they have a pretty big following. And I have gotten, to know him pretty well just through Royals Farm, and then we played some MLB The Show this summer, things like that. So we've gotten to know each other. Him and I have also never met in person, similar to you, Alex. I've never met you in person, but
It's kind of strange now because we've been hosting this podcast almost 3 months. We're almost going
that's
on.
the world we live in. That is the absolute world we live in. But yeah, so obviously Joel can explain that better. But what is cool about Joel, right, is since he doesn't work for an affiliated team or anything like that, that means he's doing what he does out of his own legitimate passion, right? It's meaning he's choosing to do this. He doesn't wake up every day and get a paycheck for, covering the Royals Farm. To my knowledge, I don't know what they've got going on over there with Royals Farm Report, but it's what he loves to do, and he wants to get into scouting, into something like that, and that's how he just loves it, because he has a day job that he goes to. So that's why we wanted to have him on, is because he brings that just like absolute passion to the game of baseball that I think people so desperately love to see, because those are the guys you root for, right? Are the ones that bring the passion every day to that. And Joel is the epitome of bringing passion to what he does. So, I'm sure he's had to slow down a little bit now that he's a dad and everything like that. It's probably not as easy to scout as much when you bring a newborn into the world, but he's doing, they do a great job over there. And yeah, Joel, if you were listening to this, hopefully I didn't butcher anything. I tried to give you the appropriate introduction, but without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear from the man himself. Welcome onto the show. You see what I did there? I rhymed show. I said shoal instead of show because I was so ready to say Joel. So welcome on to the show, Joel Penfield.
Has his slick back hair, almost looks right out of the movie Grease, Vinnie Pasquantino.
I don't want to say it, but I might be the best looking guy on this podcast at the current moment. I mean, just looking at the landscape of what we've got going on here, I think it's me. I got the collared shirt on. I mean, I got the hair slicked back. This is just, talk about bringing vibes. That's all me right now, baby.
Now, most of the time it's usually me, but I guess we'll let Vinny have this one tonight. But we got a great show planned out. Joel Penfield joining the podcast tonight. Joel, how are we doing?
Well, I'm doing great. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's really interesting being on the other side of a podcast. I host 2 different shows, so to be a guest on one is not necessarily what I'm used to, but I appreciate the opportunity. You guys have done awesome work since you kind of rebooted the show with Vinny, the best looking guy on this podcast at this point. I'm jealous of the hairlines from both of you guys at this point.
Yeah.
But I have the beard. I at least have that one up. I'll take that at least at this point. But yeah, I've seen the guests you guys have had to include me, and that is really a privilege. And I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Well, so let's kind of start with your baseball background. So for anybody who doesn't know, you host 2 shows. You're also one half, I believe, of Royals Farm Report, right? You and Alex Duvall.
Yep, hosting that podcast over at Royals Farm Report. Yep.
Yep. So you host that podcast, and you have an Oklahoma State podcast you host. So just kind of give us your background a little bit. For anybody who doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, so I graduated from Oklahoma State University with a sports management degree. Sports have been, a huge part of my life for pretty much since I was a little kid. I went to my first baseball game when I was not even 3 years old, and I was just hooked. Ever since then, I always knew I wanted to do something in sports, wanted to do something in baseball. And I've been afforded the opportunity to be able to talk about Oklahoma State sports, which has been a passion of mine for, since I was a kid. My parents went there as well. It's an outlet to be able to talk about a school that I love and it's in teams that I love. And then I had this opportunity with Royals Farm Report. It was a site that I'd followed for the previous year when it started in 2017. And then with the draft in 2018, they actually drafted a guy from Oklahoma State named Jonathan Heasley, he was on the Lexington Legends championship team the year in 2019. And I just DM'd him and I was talking to him about Heasley, because I watched him consistently during that season. And I was like, wait, are you guys offering, are you guys have the opportunities to come in and work with you guys? I'd love to just get around the game and talk about baseball. And that's really what it is. It's just been an outlet to talk about baseball, but it's been cool to talk to players in the organization like yourself, Vinny, and others. We've been able to interview Brad Keller in the organization, a couple assistant coaches. And at the end of the day, I get to talk about baseball, and that's always just a great time, no matter what time of year it is. Whenever I can talk about baseball, sports, anything, it's a good outlet, mainly because I'll drive my wife insane if I don't have an outlet to talk about baseball with anybody else besides just her, where it's kind of she likes sports, she likes baseball, but it's just kind of an echo chamber,
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. And I know, like what you said, it is kind of strange being on this side of a podcast. And I think just in general, a lot of people that don't play the game of baseball, like myself and like you, Joel, is like we kind of have to prove ourselves a little bit more when we are talking baseball. It's like I'm already a step behind. It's like when you're doing a podcast with Vinny, what do I know that he doesn't? So it's like you kind of have to, your stuff. And that's what you guys do. Your Royals facts, the players, exactly what you're talking about. How challenging is that at times? Because, you aren't an ESPN. You're not a Barstool Sports podcast where you have to, continue to build your brand every single day. And is it challenging at times to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And being an independent site as well, we really had to work from the ground up. We didn't really have a platform to build up with, like even Royals Review, which is the SB Nation affiliate for the Kansas City Royals. Like we didn't really have them. We are on their podcast network now, which has kind of helped elevate things a little bit and got more people to listen because it shows up on the news feed for them. Whenever they listen to the Royals Review podcast, they'd see Royals Farm on there, and we get clicks and listens that way. But you're right. I love the game. I played in high school. I wasn't very good, but I always just loved the game and found ways to just be around the game. And that's what I always wanted to do and find those little opportunities wherever I could to network with people and became friends with guys on the baseball team. I've been able to meet with the coaches at Oklahoma State at times. And, and through the Royals Farm site, we've been able to develop relationships with players in the locker room just by reading our stuff, and they see that we're talking about them in this way. We got so many messages from guys early on that just said, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Don't think that what you guys are doing doesn't go unnoticed in our locker rooms. Like, it means a lot to us. You guys are talking about us as a rookie ball player. That means a lot to guys. And then they keep talking to their teammates, and it kind of goes throughout the organization now. And we're still building, we're still growing. It obviously, our site took a hit and our content took a hit without there being a minor league season this year. Hopefully in 2021, we're going to be able to kind of build, because we were on a really, really good track with what we were doing. And 2020 was going to be a really big year for us. We're hoping 2021 can be that now. People are itching for baseball. They're itching for the future of the Kansas City Royals. And we hopefully can kind of cut into that market a little bit and get people excited about the future.
So one thing that I'm interested in with what you guys do, and it mostly because I just don't know, because I haven't had a full season or anything, but do you guys travel around to different affiliates, or did you go to spring training or anything? Like, just really anything?
Alex went to spring training in right before everything kind of hit the fan, with this whole, with everything that's been going on throughout the world. Mm-hmm. He was there kind of right before everything kind of shut back down. I went to a couple of games for Northwest Arkansas, traveling around when I did my scouting gig during the 2019 season for 2080 baseball. And I went to a couple of games just as a fan as well, because as much as I like covering the game from a scouting perspective, it is nice to just go and sit there with a beer and a brat and just enjoy a ball game as well. There's kind of that nice balance there to still enjoy the game and make it not feel like a job. And so I got to watch some guys there, but with some of the Royals affiliates being further on the East Coast with Lexington and Wilmington, and Burlington, at least for that 2019 and, the prior seasons before the reaffiliation occurred, it was tough for us to go out there and do that. But hopefully in the future, I'd love to travel around and go to some of these other ballparks and do in-person interviews with guys, and not to do it over Zoom or Skype or whatever in the past, but to build those relationships with guys in any capacity is important. And that's what a lot of doing what we do here is. It's hopping on Zoom calls and just kind of shooting the ball and building relationships through interviews. And then when the recording's done, just having fun conversations and, finding ways after that.
Having fun conversations is what we like to do. And that's why, Vinnie and I wanted to reboot this podcast and to take it to, this different level to now where we can just get to know people. What is your favorite thing about doing a podcast?
I think for me, it's just having an outlet to talk about the things that I do. And with the Royals, it's specifically talking about that. It's talking about the Royals. It's talking about the Storm Chasers, the top prospects, things like that. There's a little more of a narrow focus with it. But over at Cowboys Drive for Free with my Oklahoma State podcast, it's football and then basketball and then recruiting and baseball and softball and soccer. And it's just but it's also talking about something I'm passionate about, which is my school and my teams, and being able to build relationships with those people as well. We don't have as much access with Oklahoma State. We really have to kind of dig to find guests, but it's also finding ways to be more knowledgeable about what I'm talking about as well. I love baseball and I know baseball really well. I don't know football. At least when I started, I know football, but being able to break it down from an analytical standpoint, I wasn't as good at when I first started, but it gave me the opportunity to continue to talk about it and be a more informed person on a microphone that people want to listen to and want to learn about, whatever the topic is, whatever the team is, whatever, Oklahoma State's doing on defense, and what does, Baylor bring that Oklahoma State, it could cause problems, or how could Oklahoma State have success? Things like that have given me an opportunity to be a smarter consumer of the game, and that, spans across multiple sports.
Have you found, as you're in your third year with Royals Farm? Mm-hmm. Have you found that now you've started to build relationships with players, like real relationships, that it's a little bit harder to talk about some things with, on social media about the players or anything? We've built up a pretty good relationship, I would like to think. Yeah. And, if I just go suck, you kind of have to write about that as a player in the Royal system. How would you approach that with somebody who you've become, friends with? It's
an interesting dynamic, right? Because you need to be a critical consumer mm-hmm. of the game and find a way to, while you may have a bias in what you're talking about, considering you talk about one topic, mm-hmm. but not have a bias where you overlook things that are going wrong or just flat out bad play, and as a professional as well, you're going to see that criticism. You could, there are name searchers out there that, you have a bad game and they'll just type their name in on social media and they'll see all those bad things that people see.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I'm friends with one, I think that people are understanding as well that, I'm friends with them, but I can also, admit, as someone that has a following and people, come to me as little as my following may be for that type of content. And if it's all positive and it's all, oh, everything's great and awesome, whatever. He went 0 for 4, but he's still an awesome player, all that. It kind of falls on deaf ears at some point, because you just look like a giant homer and people really don't take your content seriously. I think you have to find a way to ride that line of not writing someone too hard, and being overly critical, but also not saying everything's amazing as well. It really is a fine line.
Yeah.
It's almost like building trust, with them as people. And, don't you worry, Vinnie. If I cover you as a player, I'm going to play down the middle.
That sounds like a threat, Alex. That sounds like an absolute threat.
Like, I just want to make it clear right now we're recording this on December 11th, 2020. If you make the Major League Royals and I'm covering the team, I'm going to have to, do my job. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's good to know, Alex. That's really good to know that you're going to play your cards like that. So I'm just a little bit lost at words right now, but I'm going to move on to a different question. We're going to get back to our guest, Alex. Don't try to hijack the show here. Joel, you are a new father. Talk to us about it. That is, how cool does it get?
Man.
The last time we had talked over a Zoom, you were preparing to become a father, and now you are a father. So tell us what that's like.
Man, it is the biggest blessing in the world. There's no other way to describe it. And you spend 9 months preparing for all these things, and you read all the books and you read all the articles and you go to all the the classes and things like that, and you think you have a good idea of what you're going to do. And then that baby is born and it becomes baby ranger school, and you just have to survive, and you're just learning on the fly, and you're trying to do whatever you can to stay sane, get enough rest and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, it's so cool to watch that kid grow. I come home from work every day and he's sitting on the couch. My wife is holding him, and he just, he's smiling at me now because he's about 2.5, 3 months old, and he sees me and smiles. And it just, man, it is the most fulfilling and heartwarming thing I could possibly see. I've had rough days at work where I come home, just a long day, but I get to hold him and he smiles or laughs at me or whatever. And it just, man, it turns my whole day around just like that. I can't wait to continue to see him grow, and I'll catch him staring at the TV when I'm watching football or watching basketball, watching baseball, and I'll narrate the game to him. And I can't wait to watch those games, and he actually kind of knows what's going on. And I can't wait to that day when I can take him to his first baseball game, football, whatever. It's really cool, man.
How much sleep do you average a night?
So my wife is amazing. I work a decent labor job. I work in construction. So for my day job. And so I work, 7 to sometimes 5 or 6, or even 4 o'clock. So I work really long days, labor intensive days. And so when I'm working during the week, she will take most of those feedings at night. Thankfully, he's sleeping in long enough spurts where we're getting at least 4 or 5 hours of sleep at a time on a good night. That varies because children are volatile human beings at that age. But on weekends, I'll take, I'll take a night, or I'll do every feeding at night, and let her catch up on sleep too, because we both have to at some point, right? And we're just crossing our fingers and waiting for that day when he sleeps through the night and we don't have to worry about, that horrible screaming at 2:30 or 3 in the morning.
So with the year happening like it did, with everything getting shut down, and what was the biggest takeaway for you, basically since March? What have you learned the most, either about yourself, about the world, whatever it may be?
It's just trying to take everything in stride. I think it is very easy to just kind of be downtrodden and be very it is what it is. Everything sucks, blah, 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 blah. It's very easy to kind of fall into that trap. Right. And yes, it has been very difficult because this was coming into this year, I thought maybe this was going to be my shot to either find an internship with an organization or with a major organization, or continue to do the scouting thing I did with 2080 and travel, do more traveling, have more opportunities to see more clubs and more players and build more relationships with scouts. And obviously that didn't pan out. And so I really kind of, at one point I did kind of throw my hands up and say, that's it. But I'm also, I'm 24 years old. Like, my dreams aren't over. As much as I may want to think that, sometimes it feels that way, they're not. And so it's just finding ways to stay up and find new ways and go, okay, what's next? Let's go. Let's see what else is there, and find those opportunities, make those opportunities for myself. And that's why I think 2021 is going to be really big, because I've been trying to do more and build more and see what I can throw at baseball and throw at the sports industry and see what's there for them. And things aren't going to be back to normal right away in 2021, as much as we all want to hope that magically it'll be that way. But, it can't be much worse than this year, right? At some point. I'm excited to see what this year has, but I'd say that it's definitely trying to pick myself up and continue to just tell myself that, hey, let's just keep rolling, and let's see what's there.
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to do in this year, because if you didn't, it would be, just really tough to continue through this year and look at next year. And you have to try to find the positives and the silver linings in this year. I'll ask you the question: what is, besides the birth of your son, what has been the greatest moment you've had this year?
And obviously my son being born is really cool, but I think it was growing with my wife during this year. If you need to, my favorite joke is that my wife was sober for the first 9 months of 2020. If you need any indication of how strong she is, because we found out in January we were having a baby, and just, everything's really great. And then the pandemic hits, but we're still trying to stay as positive as we can. And, because we get ready for the baby, and to see my wife be so strong and positive and, beautiful through this whole thing was a great joy every single day to see. That I would say that's definitely been the biggest thing this year is, now we have him, but even before that, when things were really bad, when everything was closing down and there wasn't really anything we could do, to still see her every day be so strong and positive. And she was still teaching. She's a elementary music teacher, and still finding ways to create joy for her students and things like that. Like, that really, kept me going, because I knew that even, when I was kind of down in the dumps when the baseball season got postponed and basketball and all these things, to still see her with that positive mindset, despite everything going on, it really meant a lot to me for sure, and helped me through it all.
So, kind of change the subjects a little bit. You talked about kind of what you potentially want to do, either with a major league organization or with scouting, whatever it is. What is your dream job within the baseball world?
My dream job is to continue scouting. I really want to be a director of scouting, player development, something like that someday. That is a goal that I still have in my mind, even if I still may, find my way in the industry somewhat, in some capacity. That's really what my dream is. Now, will I ever achieve that? I don't know, because I know at the end of the day, I just want to work in sports. I want to go to work I want my office to be the ballpark. Like, that's not a bad day, no matter what I'm doing in the sports industry. So I kind of have to be realistic with it and understand, like Alex and I talked about earlier, I don't have the college playing experience. I don't have that professional experience, perhaps. So I am kind of behind the 8 ball with really what I want to do. So I have to work my ass off to be able to get to that point. And it's going to take years and years of working at it. Maybe I can get there someday, or maybe I can find some other path and some other avenue to help a major league club or a minor league club in any way. I just know that I want to show up to work in a polo and khakis and walk into a ballpark every single day and be around the game. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is being around baseball constantly, because that's really what, it's been the one constant in my life through all the ups and downs of everything, in my life. Baseball's kind of always been it for me, whether there are games being played or not. I'm always constantly wanting to be around baseball.
So what about baseball, like, kind of motivates you? Like, growing up, what was it that really made you click with the sport?
And it wasn't even a memory that I have because I was just too young, but the first baseball game I went to was a Mariners-Giants game in 1999 at the old Kingdome 2 weeks before. It was like 2 or 3 weeks before now T-Mobile Park, but Safeco Field opened. It was falling apart. It was, kind of whatever. We were stationed out there. My dad was in the Army, and we were stationed at Fort Lewis, which is about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour south of Seattle. And my dad was hell-bent on getting me to a baseball game, but my mom was like, he's 2 years old, he's going to run around the concourse. He's not going to pay attention. We're going to leave in the 5th inning. And for 9 innings, I just sat there and was fascinated. And we had like nosebleed seats way in the outfield. But I sat there and watched that whole game. And that game had Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez, Jay Buhner, Alex Rodriguez in it. Think about that group of ball players I didn't even know yet. But to watch that greatness in front of me right away, even when I didn't know, like that's fascinating. And for the rest of that season, my mom didn't have to turn on cartoons for me. She just turned on Sports Center or a ball game, and I would sit on the couch and watch it before I went to bed. And I learned my numbers from looking at the backs of jerseys. That's how I learned how to count. I knew I knew every word of the national anthem by the time I was 3. That's how obsessed I became early, and it's just continued to manifest itself in that way. And I'm always striving to learn more about the game because as much as I think I know about baseball, I know I don't know enough. You see 15-year vets that talk about learning something new every day in the game. And I think it's just that constant, you learn something new every day that kind of strives, continues to motivate me to learn more, to be better, to be a better consumer of the game. And yes, be a fan, but also understand what's going on the field and not be taken over by those emotions. There's just so much to baseball, and it's such a beautiful game that I love the quote from Moneyball. It's how can you not be romantic about baseball? There's just so many moments in that game, and they're in the game, and there's just so many memories that I've made that I just can't, that I just can't get out of that headspace. It's just a part of who I am, whether, I wasn't very good at the game or not. The game may not have, I love the game. The game may not have loved me, but damn it, if I'm not going to go to the ballpark every chance I get.
You bring up just learning about baseball every single day, and like you said, the best baseball players out there are still learning something new about baseball every single chance that they get. How fun is it for you to get the chance to talk to these players, and learn about them and how they attack baseball and how they play the game, because everyone plays it a little bit differently. So how much do you truly enjoy getting to know how different players really just have a different mindset of playing the game?
It's so cool because everybody has a different background in how they got to the game. You'll talk about, like you'll have guys that are multi-sport athletes. And I haven't gotten to talk to them, obviously, but you see a guy like Lorenzo Cain, who was a basketball player, but went and just tried out for the baseball team. And then he's a 3-time All-Star and one of the best center fielders in the last decade. Everybody kind of has their own path. Everyone has their own mindset of how they get to the game. My favorite question to ask whenever I go on the podcast, and Vinnie will remember, I don't know if I've asked Vinnie this, but I've talked to Brad Keller, Richard Lovelady, Nick Heath, who have made it to the big leagues. But that kind of I don't know how profanity.
Why you haven't asked me. That's why you haven't asked me the question yet, probably, because no show.
But basically, what's that oh shit moment in the big leagues, basically? What is that, or professional baseball, where you're like, oh, this isn't college, this isn't AA, I'm in the big leagues. How do you attack, what's that moment for you? And I remember Richard Lovelady saying, yeah, I let up a single to Mike Trout, and then Albert Pujols was right behind him. And it's just, how do you even think about that as a rookie facing the greatest player of all time to then one of the most feared power hitters in the last 2 decades, or those moments in AA where you're struggling and you figure out how to get out of it. Or Vinnie talking about how slow he is, and then he goes and gets a stolen base and instructs. It's little things like that. You find those little stories that the guys have. And I think those little stories are really fun and really fascinating. It's very different because there's so many different ways to attack the game, even though it's played the same way. No matter where you are, it's 90 feet to first base, it's 60 feet 6 inches from home plate. Whatever. It's all the same, but everybody attacks the game differently, and that's what makes it fun.
So if there was anything you could change about the game of baseball, what would it be?
Man, baseball's got to market itself better, man. There's so much talent. I don't think this is an opinion, but I don't think it's that incorrect. That I don't think the collection of talent that is in the game today is better than I think this is the best it's ever been. when you think about the amount of pitchers that are elite on top of their game in their prime, or even guys that are coming out of their prime, like Verlander and Kershaw, that are still just shoving every fifth day, Max Scherzer too. The hitters and the young players that are killing it right now. Mike Trout is my favorite player. No, he has been since he was a rookie. But Juan Soto is appointment television. That dude has fun on the baseball field. Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna. You know, you look at Mondesi, when he's going off, good Lord, just from a Royals perspective, like, man, he's one of the most fun electric players in the game. There are so many guys that baseball needs to embrace and they need to showcase. And I feel like Major League Baseball falls so short of that. And it's why it lags behind baseball and the MLB, or behind football and basketball, where at the NFL and the NBA, you know who the stars are because they talk about them every single day. You know, Patrick Mahomes, there's a highlight of him every single Sunday. LeBron, Zion Williamson, you know, pick a name in the NBA. You know who they are because they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. And they're doing highlights and there's mixtapes of them everywhere. Like, there are highlight moments and moments from all of these superstar players every single day. And I feel like we just don't see it sometimes. And it's so frustrating because, like I said, the collection of talent has never been better. And this is a moment when the social media age where baseball can embrace that and showcase it. It's, you know, there's information everywhere on these guys, and it just doesn't happen. And I think what Trevor Bauer is doing with momentum and with his blogs and vlogs and everything else, he's doing it better than anybody. And you see, he won a Cy Young, and he's able to back it up too. It's not like he's just some scrub that's out here vlogging whatever he's doing. He was out there with a sub-2 ERA, just blowing it by dudes all year en route to a Cy Young. I'm not saying that every player needs to have their own vlog and YouTube channel, but that's a blueprint that Major League Baseball needs to embrace. And if they can do that, man, this game is so special. And I know we love it, and I know there's a lot of other people that love it, but it feels sometimes like it falls on deaf ears. And if we can find ways to showcase those guys every single night, it's a 162 game season. That's 162 opportunities to show off how damn good Mike Trout is. Jacob deGrom throwing 100 miles an hour every single day. You know, Fernando Tatis just making electric plays all over the field. Juan Soto and the Soto shuffle. You know, those are things that we need to see every single night. And I think if we get to that point, we're going to be able to see baseball continue, you know, kind of come back on the upswing. People want to say baseball's dying. I don't agree with that, but I do think there's opportunities for baseball to improve and to be a better sport for all of us. You know, we love the game, but to get to those casual fans, that's the way to do it.
Now, do you think that may be because, and just in terms of marketing, because it's such a harder game to dominate, right? Like, you look at Mike Trout, who is, you know, pretty much not even arguably the greatest player right now, one of the greatest players of all time, and he's still, you know, relatively young for being as good as he is, how long he's been. Like, you know, but his career batting average, it's probably right around 300, right? Like, I don't know what it is. So you're looking at 3 out of 10 times he's getting a hit, and it's, you know, you compare it to LeBron. How many nights does he go where he doesn't score any points or something like that? Like, what role do you think that plays in that?
Yeah, I do think that's an interesting point. It's not one that I've thought of a ton, but I see absolutely where you're coming from. And I think what a lot of people don't realize or don't think about a lot is that baseball's a game that's based on failure. Mm. It really is. You can fail 75% of the time and be a Hall of Famer. And I think that's what makes baseball almost more fascinating is you're in a game where you're not going to get a hit 7 out of 10 times. But those 3 times that you do is ridiculous because hitting a baseball is so hard. It's the hardest thing in sports, you know. And I'm not going to discredit how hard it is to dunk or how hard it is to throw a 30-yard pass on a rope to the, you know, outside the numbers.
Well, and quickly, I'd just like to say it sucks every time somebody says that, how it always goes to, oh, well, dunking a ball is really hard. Like, throwing a 50-yard bomb in football is really hard. Like, I wish we could just recognize that it's hard to hit a baseball. It's hard to dunk.
Yeah.
Hard, like, I don't know why it's the hardest thing to do in sports, hit a baseball, whatever. It's not discrediting other sports. That's something that always frustrates me. And I know that's not where you were going with that, but I hate when that happens. Like, say we clip that moment and post that of you saying, you know, the hardest thing to do in sports hit is baseball. We'll have a few people being like, oh, well, what about these other sports? And it's just, that's not the point of the comment. The point of the comment is like, step in there see how hard it is, how little reaction time there is. And like, that's just the point of it.
Well, it's like the Broncos wide receiver that had to play quarterback a couple weeks ago. I mean, there are so many people on the internet like, I can complete a pass in the NFL, and he went 1 for 9 with 3 picks.
Yeah.
And that one completion was a screen pass where there was no one around him. It's hard to be a professional. There's a reason why they are professionals, right? But I do think that baseball is different because, like I said, I feel like the game is based on failure, and it's more readily seen than some other sports. And I think it's also because it's more readily seen over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
You see a guy go through an 0 for 30 slump and you think he sucks. Well, you don't see what goes into that 0 for 30, right? Especially if you're just a box score warrior who just sees the stat line and doesn't actually look at what happened. I mean, baseball is just a tough game. It is, and so many facets: pitching, fielding, everything. It's such a tough sport that I think people get lost in that sometimes and just want to look at stats when stats are great, but you also got to see what looks on the field too, right?
You bring up stats, and we can go into this, and we can have a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour conversation about statistics and baseball. I'll narrow it down to one question. If I'm a new fan of the game and I ask, what would be the most important stat to gauge who's a good player and who is struggling right now, what stat would that be?
I can answer this for Joel, I think. I think I can answer this because I think we've had this conversation.
I'm not going to go that far into the weeds, but I know where Vinny's going with this.
Yeah.
But for just a fan or someone that is looking at baseball stats for the first time, like on the big board at a ball game, I'm going to look at OPS, on base plus slugging. I think that is a very simple statistic that shows, A, this guy can get on base, A, can hit for power, which are the two big things in this game, right? And that we see in baseball right now, the Moneyball statistic of, does he get on base? If he gets on base, he's helping his team. And does he do damage when he does hit the ball? I think those are just two very basic things that can show someone just how good a player is. Because I will come on there and say I think batting average is incredibly irrelevant because it doesn't tell the true story of what goes on at bat to at bat to at bat. The one Vinny's going into, well, it goes in a little further into the weeds, but weighted runs created plus.
I didn't even know that's what it was called. I just know it as WRC plus. I thought it was something like walks, runs, create. I didn't even know what it was.
So it's weighted runs created plus, which is a stat that adjusts to ballpark and era. So it allows baseball fans to look at that number and be able to compare, say, Nolan Arenado to Ted Williams to Ernie Banks. Just go with that because it adjusts the era and the ballpark that they played in and the era. So, how many runs are scored, et cetera, et cetera. Like I can go way too far into the weeds, but I don't feel like nerding out that much right now. But it's all down to league average being 100 is the league average weighted runs created plus. Anything above that is 1% better than league average. Anything below that is 1% less than league average, et cetera, et cetera. Vinny, for instance, in the Appalachian League, his first year in pro ball had like a 140 weighted runs created plus. So he was 40% better than league average, which I believe was actually the highest in the Royals organization that season. So
other than Logan Porter.
Yeah. Well, Logan Porter had like 50 at-bats or something like that. Like I don't think he actually qualified for any batting statistics for that season, but I digress. You had the most consistent season for a Royals hitter that season based on the damage you did, how often you got on base, how many runs you scored, et cetera.
Thanks. To move on from statistics, just kind of a random question, just because of how nice your beard is. Have you ever thought about auditioning for the show Vikings?
No, I don't think I could do that. It's not long enough, and I think like my beard, and my beard is super curly, so it grows out, not necessarily down. So I look kind of Amish when I just let it grow out way too far. So I don't think I could do that necessarily, but I enjoy just having it this length. My wife likes it, so I keep it there for her.
Well, that's all that matters. If she didn't like it, you would not have a beard. And also, by the way, Alex, don't question my questions. Joel, we've been having a little bit of a rivalry with the amount of like the good and bad questions that we each ask. That's a very good question.
This man just got up into a coach's stance. He got up and he was hands on knees.
I was. Alex, I will spark you. I will have to come up to New York when it's okay to do so, mask on, socially distance, whatever we need to do, and I will absolutely spark you. Not a question in my mind. Keep talking. Keep talking from up there. You feel safe up in New York, Alex. Keep on talking.
Man, talk about, if we want to bring up coaching, and managing, I like the record show. Talk about records and coaching. Not a lot of success on Vinnie's side with that. But anyways,
Wait, hold on a second. What are you talking about?
You failed as a manager.
In what?
Coaching baseball.
Oh, I thought you were talking about video game leagues because I'm the defending champ, my friend.
He is the Royals Farm Report League MLB The Show champion. He ruled Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's instead of Vinnie hijacking the show, let's get back into talking about Joel, the guest of honor tonight. Joel, what is one thing you want to accomplish in the next 6 months?
The next 6 months. Man, I barely know what the heck I'm going to do tomorrow.
And that's fine. Maybe the next 6 hours.
Well, the next 6 hours, I'm hoping sleep, if my son allows. But 6 months from now, see, that would be what, May. I'm hoping that maybe my wife and I can find a way to move back to Kansas City. That's kind of been a goal of ours for a little while. Just kind of a fresh start. We've lived in Stillwater for almost 6 years now, between college and then staying here afterwards. And it's just kind of allows for a little bit of a fresh start for us, something new, something different. Well, and I kind of consider Kansas City my hometown, so it'd be kind of nice to move back in that direction.
I love it. I've never been to Kansas City, so I got to get out there.
Great barbecue. The best barbecue in the world.
Ask him, Alex. I know you love asking. Ask him.
So, what's your go-to spot?
It's Kansas City Joe's.
Okay.
You get a Z-Man on Texas toast with a Boulevard Pale Ale, and it is the prime meal. I think Jack Stack's really good. It can be a little bit overpriced. The cheesy corn is absolutely worth it. Q39, it kind of upscale, but Kansas City Joe's is that right balance between kind of a hole-in-the-wall place and really, really, really good upscale barbecue. It's awesome.
So, Joel and Alex, if you have anything more, do you have anything more at the current moment, Alex?
Well, I do have. I just want to respond to that. So I just got back from Texas about a week ago. Now, Texas barbecue, that's pretty good. Have you had Texas barbecue?
I have, but Kansas City's it's just better. It really is.
How about North Carolina barbecue? I know people love that too.
So North Carolina barbecue is not bad either. I will say, it's pretty solid.
Is it Kansas City, Texas, North Carolina?
I would go with that. I don't like the vinegary sauce as much with North Carolina barbecue. It's a nice, it's something different. Not my favorite. I like the Texas brisket. I think brisket in Texas is really good. Kansas City brisket's just better. But my thing with Texas barbecue is they lather it in so much sauce that you lose the taste of what you're actually eating. Good barbecue doesn't need a ton of barbecue sauce. You put that on there to hide whatever the heck is underneath sometimes. Kansas City barbecue doesn't need that.
I would agree. I also like the barbecue out there. Alex, go ahead. I see you moving your mouth.
I'm not going to put in my opinion because I haven't had Kansas City barbecue yet. So I can't put an opinion out there. I can't say, well, Texas is better than Kansas City because I haven't had Kansas City. That's not fair.
Alex, I don't even know if you're the best judge of barbecue because you only know one food. You're from New York. All you know is pizza. That's it. All you know is pizza.
That's such stereotypical BS, okay?
Anyways, Joel, we finally have come up with a name for our last segment. It's called 3 Up, 3 Down, and we're going to alternate questions to you.
Wait, can we actually... You know how this whole podcast is kind of just we go and we can change the rules as we go?
No, I didn't know that. I was not aware that we could just change the rules.
Joel, aren't you on just you live life in the moment and you can change wherever and you can go wherever the conversation goes?
Oh, absolutely. Most of the time, my co-host and I just hit record and see what happens.
Okay. Well, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to completely change the game on Vinnie and I say we try the other one. Try it out. Balls and strikes.
Strikes? Okay.
Yeah.
Joel, this is called balls and strikes. The goal is to get a strikeout. We're going to ask questions, each of us, up until we each either walk you or strike you out. If it's a good question, you say strike. If it's a bad question, you say ball. And it's completely up to you. Alex is going to start. And
now, do I answer only the questions that I deem a strike?
Well, it's up to you.
Okay. I will answer all the questions, but I will definitely call you out.
Rip into the questions if you feel the need to do so.
All right. Are we alternating? Like, is this like a duel?
Whenever you get a ball, I'll go.
Okay. All right.
So you could win. You could win right away. This is for the bragging rights, Alex.
All right. So I got to go with the first one. I got to go with the first one to get the ultimate question, okay? What is one TV show that you love that everybody hates that you can't stop watching?
You know, because I saw how Vinnie reacted when you did this question the last time, I'm going to go with a ball just off the plate. But I'm going to go with Friends. I don't understand the Friends slander. Like, I hate the Friends slander on the internet. I don't get it. It's hilarious.
Friends is a very love or hate show. Like, nobody is just like, oh, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I don't understand the hate for it. I really don't.
Yeah. All right, my first question. Do you prefer drinking out of plastic or glass?
Well, if this is going to be on video, this is a glass. And I'm going to go with a ball because drinking out of plastic cups is when you're like 18 years old in the basement of some dark house in college. When you're a grown-up, you drink out of a glass or a bottle or a can.
That's a great answer because that's what Alex and I have kind of talked about, how most of the older people on the show say glass and the younger guests we have say plastic.
You're drinking out of a plastic cup because you were underage and terrified of what the consequences could be if you get caught.
All right, Alex. 1-0 count. You're up, kid.
Yeah, so I'm going to go for the hard-hitting strikes right now and get my strikeout right here. Joel, when was the last time you surprised yourself?
Strike, because I did not expect that. That was a 1-0 changeup, I think is what that was. Like the outer part of the plate.
Through it. You swung right through it.
Yeah, I was geared up dead red and did not expect that. I was going to surprise myself. Shoot. I would say probably at work today. My boss came up to me and was like, because normally for work I install doors and windows in like new construction houses in Oklahoma City. You know, kind of is what it is. But he goes, today, this is going to be your project. You're going to build a wall in the door shop to like support, basically so stuff doesn't fall over. And I did it today, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that.
All right, that's a good surprise.
Hey, flew by the seat of my pants and got it done. And my boss said, "Hey, that doesn't look bad."
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
All
right, Alex, you're still up. 1-1 count.
All right. If you could host a podcast, not including the two you currently host, and you make a new one, who's one co-host that you want to host it with, but the twist is it has to be someone in your phone contacts.
My phone contacts. Okay. So I'm going to go with my friend Jesse. He brews beer. As you can tell, I'm a beer connoisseur. I'm a beer like nerd, and I love really good, obscure craft beer. So it'd be, this conversation where we just sit around with something we've never had before and talk about it and think about what we like, what we don't like, etc. So just a podcast where I get to talk about booze for a little bit,
So was that a strike or a ball?
I'll go with the strike because I like that. I like that concept of a question. So it's 1-2.
All right, Alex, this is a big question right here. Huge question.
All right, this is the big one here. If a 15-year-old kid walked up to you right now and said, Joel, I don't understand baseball. It's boring to me. What are you saying to that 15-year-old kid?
Ooh. See, I like this question, but I'm going to say ball because I don't like whenever someone says baseball is boring, it just irks me a little bit. And so I like the concept, but I'm going to go ball. But what would I say to that guy? I would say just go look at a home run compilation, like a longest home run compilation, and tell me that's not awesome. If you watch a 500-foot home run and you say that's not cool, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. It's 1-0 for me. It's 2-2 for Alex. So if you were the GM of a team currently at the moment, like no-name team, doesn't matter who it is, whatever, it's the Joel Penfield team, how are you constructing that team?
That's a strike.
Alex, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. He called it a strike.
I didn't say anything.
He's TrackMan. He's the computer strike zone, which we know Joel's a fan of. Joel's a big robot strike zone guy.
How would I construct that team? Oh, that's tough. Like, I think there's a good balance between having, like, for my rotation and for my lineup, you have to have like a minimum like 96-mile-an-hour fastball because, hey, velo eats, man. It eats people up. Give me that and like an average to above average secondary, and I can work with that. For my roster construction, give me speed in center field, give me power in right, give me a good glove in left, power on the corners, a good all-around player at shortstop, an absolute goon behind the plate that's going to just block everything inside. I don't need him to hit more than $180, but just block everything behind the plate and then give me like, I don't know, basically give me Nicky Lopez at second base. Like someone's going to hit enough, but is going to be a lockdown defender.
Yeah. All right. 1-1 count for me. Let's see. I just had a question and it slipped my mind. Oh, in your experience, who is the best hitter, you know, it could be a big leaguer, could be a minor leaguer, could be a college player, whoever, that you have seen in person?
Strike. 1-2.
Alex, stop reacting to every time he calls a strike for me.
All right, Vinny, you reacted when I called the strike too, so don't talk.
Here we go. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Joel.
Best hitter I've seen in person. I mean, I've seen Barry Bonds before, but I was too young to really know. I watched. God, that's so tough. Okay, no, that's not that. Ichiro, man. I said I lived in Seattle for when Ichiro came to Seattle in 2001. Mariner, he was my favorite player really until he retired.
Mm-hmm.
Man, like that's just a dude that just knew the zone, knew how to hit. Man, like it was just special when he would just do his thing. I watched him lead off a game. I still remember it. It was 2004. It was Mariners and Royals. And my dad's a Royals fan. Obviously, I love the Royals, but at heart, I'm a Mariners fan just because that was my team when I was growing up. And my dad splurged, got tickets right behind home plate for Mariners Royals. I was I was in second grade. I was so excited. Ichiro hit a ball over the bullpen in right field to lead off the game. And the Mariners won like 15-3. And my dad was like, oh, God. But anytime I got the chance to watch him or any other Mariners game, Ichiro was always I got up at 4 a.m. or whatever it was to watch his final game when they played in Japan last year. Like that's how obsessed I was with watching him play.
Yeah, that was a special moment because I did the same thing. And I love Ichiro. I'm not like a diehard Ichiro guy, but like that was still a moment where I was like, I need to wake up and watch this game just because it's something special.
Oh, yeah.
Next question. Out of anybody, you have seen, it doesn't necessarily have to be in person, who do you think is the greatest leader in baseball history? It could be a manager, could be a player, could be a front office member.
Do I play the game and like Angel Hernandez this, or do I just piss off one of the hosts? Because this is a really good question, but I also want to keep the game going. But I also want to keep the game going because I know Alex has some stuff too.
Alex has nothing.
Oh man, that's a good question.
Strike 3. Come on.
No, he said that's a good question, not a great question. Big difference. He did not call a strike yet, right, Joel? You did not call a strike.
I did not call a strike, and purely to keep this going because I'm curious what he has because this was even up 2-2. I'm sorry, but Angel Hernandez missed the ball right down the plate. But I'm just screwing with Vinny at this point.
That is just a tough call.
Greatest leader I've seen. Man, that's really tough.
or I guess I can frame it in a different way because that is a tough question, like to answer. Who is one manager you really wish like you could play for or be in the clubhouse with?
Oh man, yeah. See, that's a little different. I like that variation better. That doesn't change my call, but I like that variation better. Honestly, man, like, and there's some Royals bias in here, but man, I would love to play for Ned Yost.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is someone I would 100% want to play for. I may be forgetting somebody somewhere. Oh, Joe Madden too. Like just because I'd love to hear the crap he says. Yeah. Terry Francona would give me some good stories.
Yeah,
there are some guys in there that I would 100% want to play for.
Mm-hmm. All right, Alex.
2-2, big pitch coming right here. All right, Joel, you say you want to be a major league scout, and I know you will. And you got to trust the process. Who is the most underrated Kansas City Royals minor leaguer right now?
That's a ball. That is absolutely a ball.
Underrated. See, that's the tough part of this question. But just to make Vinnie mad, strike three.
That is just unbelievable. But whatever. You take your losses.
Underrated. See, I feel like Kyle Isbell doesn't get enough love sometimes. Like he may be top 10, but I feel like he gets kind of lost in the shuffle. That dude can play. And he saw if you watch some of the alternate site clips, he's hitting nukes in that stadium. He made a diving catch at the wall and ball Nick Heath into the warning track. Like that's a guy that's going to be manning a big league outfield here soon. And I feel like he's going to be really freaking good. But honestly, I'm not, and this is purely not trying to kiss up to Vinny.
No, Joel.
I'm saying this dude's legit. I'm not joking.
Well, that feels nice. That feels nice. Thanks, Joel. Thanks. We love
this. Is the guy that it would not surprise me if in the next year, like maybe by the beginning of 2022, if he's not cracking a top 30. I'm not lying about that.
And at that point, that's when I just leave Alex. It's like, hey, see ya, Alex. Top 30. I'm just kidding. Alex, I will never leave you. Don't take that seriously. I would never leave you.
I mean, to be fair, I believe in our Royals farm rankings, he's already a top 30. But I mean like Pipeline, Baseball America, like some more like bigger, scouting places. You know what I mean?
Well, thanks. That was enough talk about me. I do have an interesting question that I find interesting. You might not, but has there been, I know you haven't been there, but 3 years, has there been a player that you have just either been very right about or very wrong about?
I feel like I was pretty right on Jackson Kowar. I liked him from the draft, like very early on. Alex and I have been kind of manning the Jackson Kowar fan club, and like Brady Singer and Daniel Lynch got a ton of the love out of that 2018 class. But that was always a guy. The minute I saw that guy's changeup, I'm like, oh, that'll work. That'll be just fine.
Yeah.
If you have a fastball and a changeup, you're going to dominate the lower levels. You're going to dominate low A. You're going to dominate high A, and you're going to be just fine in double A as you're working on that third pitch. If he gets that curveball right, his fastball's up to 99 with an absolute bastard of a changeup. That guy's going to be a really good mid-rotation piece, if not even 1, 2 at least.
Yeah, I think 100 with a good changeup normally plays pretty well.
Yeah, well, I mean, 100 will play.
Yeah.
So this is a really interesting question for you guys. I'll turn the tables real quick. Would you rather have a pitcher that has 3 50-grade pitches or 1 80-grade pitch and 2 40s? So 1 elite pitch and 2 below average, or 3 that will play at the big league level right away when you draft them?
So is 50? I don't know enough about like scouting.
Okay, so 20. Average? So in the 20 to 80 scale, 50 is like considered a league average. Like you would produce at the big level with these tools, and anything above that is even better. Like 80 is considered like Hall of Fame elite. So that's a hitter. That's a dude is going to hit 340. That's a dude that's going to throw 100 miles an hour. That's there's some other variations of it, but.
I would answer the question by saying if it's an 80-40-40, I'll take the 80-40-40. But if it was 70-40-40, I would take the 50-50-50, I believe, is how I'd answer that.
For me, I think it has to be the 80-40-40, just because if you're confident about your coaching staff, you can take the 80 and hopefully make it into 85, and hope to take the 40s and make it into the 40s.
I don't think you can go above 80, Alex.
Well, no, but you know what I mean. Or even just 80, 45. I mean, I'm going to go 80, 40, 40.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go because especially I'll take this from a pitching perspective. You get a dude that throws 100. Okay, if nothing else, he's a reliever. You just need at that point, you need to take one of those secondary pitches and make that a 50 or 55. You're good to go.
Yeah.
It's like looking at like Josh Stamont. Like dude throws 100 in his sleep, but he got that big overhand curveball to start working for him. And you saw what he did at the big league level this year, just shoved people.
Mm-hmm. All right, Joel, 30 seconds. Let everybody know where they can find you. What do you bring to the table on social media? WWE promo for us. Get people to follow you. Come on, let's see it.
Follow me at JT Penfield. I tweet a lot about Oklahoma State, the Royals, other baseball stuff. I tweet funny memes of dogs, and I talk a lot about beer and whiskey too. I'm a good all-around follow if you really just want to laugh a little bit on Twitter. It's more my tweets are more of a shotgun blast. They're not all great, but there's at least one a day that's funny.
Anything that tickles your fancy, Joel will help you out with. Anything you need, he's the guy. He's got everything in that toolbox. And we were pumped to have you on today, Joel. This was a wonderful interview, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I mean, shit, you had Jessica Kleinschmidt on last night. The fact that I'm in the same boat with her and some of these other people we had on, are you kidding me? This is
Alex,
awesome.
you better clip that and send it to her because she's going to love that. She's going to love that clip.
I'm not even joking. She's one of my favorite people to follow in the game of baseball. I'm not joking.
Between Jess and Vinnie, I don't know, Joel. I don't know. Someone's sending you a paycheck. I got to figure out who it is.
Don't worry about it, Alex. Notice what he never said about you. Anything.
That is not true. Alex has been awesome. He's followed me since last season when he was doing the Burlington thing. Like, you've done awesome work. I've seen all the interviews you've done. Like you interviewed like Bob Costas and John Heyman and all that. Like, my goodness, man, you're killing it. You really are. Like,
you know what? It is about time that we blew up Alex on this podcast because this is a very Alex Fuse friendly podcast. Even though I might not seem like I am, I love this guy. I mean, the guy just does it all. So, Joel, I know this was your interview, but I just want to talk about Alex here for the next 10 seconds. Alex, you just keep doing your thing. You look good. You're going home here in a few days, I think. Your quarantine's almost over, so that's big time. And we're all just really excited for you to get back onto Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be, because you always bring the heat to the timeline, just like Joel Penfield does it. JT Penfield 12, right?
Nope, just JT Penfield.
So just JT Penfield. Hit that follow button. Let them know you're thinking about it, because that's what we are doing here.
I love it. Thanks again, Joel, for coming on today. We appreciate you coming on this podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, guys. It's been a ton of fun.
Welcome back from the Joel Penfield interview. Again, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Could you have butchered that intro to the outro any worse, Alex? Yeah, this is what that sounded like. Welcome back from that interview with Joel. I mean, come on, a little pep in your step. Hey, everybody, welcome back from that interview with Joel. Wasn't that a great time? Because we had a great time. So there was an example of just a little bit better energy, Alex, of how to do that. So I don't know how that makes you feel, which I will tell everybody. The reason Alex was doing that and butchering those words is because I had just made him laugh before he started. So he, as we all know, he needs to have a script on him. He can't just he can't improv what he's saying. So
what do you like? I have a note thing. It has like 3 words on it. I don't script anything. Okay, Vinny? I don't script anything.
I mean, that's all right, but I don't mean necessarily have a script in front of you. I mean, have a script in your head. And sometimes I throw you off that script and you just don't know what to do with yourself when that happens. There's that silence. You know what the worst part about podcasts are? Is when people are talking and then all of a sudden there's that 5 seconds of silence. Because when I'm listening to a podcast, I think my phone's ringing. And that's the worst feeling in the world when you're like in the shower or something, or you're in the car and your phone's across the car and the podcast just goes silent for a good few seconds and you're just thinking, who's calling me right now? And then the people start talking again. So I think that's one thing you and I can improve on, but it's tough over Zoom.
Yeah, because then it's like, Oh, no, you go. No, wait.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. So I guess it's better to have that few, 1 or 2 seconds.
Maybe we just need a better editing team to like edit those pauses out.
I agree. I think it's time for us to hire an editing team to come on full time for free. So I think that's what we should really look into. First, advertisers. Second, editing team.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anyone's listening to this and their biggest pet peeve that keeps them up twisting and turning in bed at night about podcasts that have like unedited 3 or 5 second pauses, reach out to us. You know where you can find us on social media, and we're willing to make something work out here.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of doing the outros, Alex?
I don't think I have a favorite part.
Well, are you going to ask me what my favorite part is?
What's your favorite part?
Is that no one listens to these, so we can pretty much just go off the cuff with anything that we say because nobody's listening right now. The interview ends and people just, what we got to do is get an ad for right after the interview, because then people will really know that they can leave.
Yeah.
So that's what we got to invest in.
One person that's listening to this, and this is the test for that person, Taylor Fisher. He's a director of sales with the Nashville Sounds, and I know he listens to the whole interview. So Taylor, if you're listening to this, thank you for listening. And I expect a text whenever you listen to this podcast. Text me. What's a word? What's a word? I don't know.
There's plenty of things that are words. You can't just ask me what a word is. You're asking for a specific word that we should tell our followers that they need to tweet or text us at.
Rock and roll. How about that? Rock and roll.
Rock and roll is what you want people to text. Now, how do you want them to spell that?
Rock, like ROCK, and.
Oh, and. So not rock and roll, rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Rock and roll. I don't know. What's the difference?
One uses just an in, and one uses the word and.
Yeah. Well, rock and roll, however you perceive it. How about that, people? Whatever you just heard me say, rock and roll, whatever you take that as, whether it's rock and roll or rock and roll, tweet us at New Ballgame Pod, or
too bad we don't have any merchandise, or else we could send out free merch for.
I got a free Burlington Royals jersey I could send them.
No, you don't, because that's mine. So
actually, it's mine now.
Did you purchase it?
Yeah.
Are you lying to me?
I purchased it.
Are you lying?
Nope.
Are you lying?
No.
It sounds like you're lying. The way you're smiling looks like you're lying too.
I purchased the jersey.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a great show.
Hey, Vinnie, I can't wait for Monday's show.
Tell us who's on Monday's show, Alex.
We've had some great people on the podcast, phenomenal interviews just like the one we had with Joel. But if you are still listening to this, and there's a good chance you're not.
Well, we could clip this, we can make this good and make a little promo for Monday.
That's true. I'm just saying we've had some great people on the podcast. Don't get me wrong. But this might be our greatest show we've ever had.
I think Mondays will be really, really good. I think people will like it. And I think he's a kind of a hot name in baseball right now because of what he's choosing to do this year.
Yeah. I don't think he's made that many podcast appearances since he's made the move.
Well, and a lot of people probably grew up to his voice calling games.
Absolutely. And we are talking about the one, the only, Len Casper, the new radio play-by-play voice of the Chicago White Sox. Len is a phenomenal guy, and it's a really great in-depth interview with Len, and you just simply can't miss this.
Yep, I would absolutely agree with that. Len Casper was a great interview, and I had a great time with him. You had a good time with him, and I think he enjoyed his time with us, which is pretty good. That's right where we want to get to, is when people are enjoying hanging out with us. So I'm happy that we were able to get him on. I'm honored he was willing to come on. So we're really excited for Monday's show to bring on Chicago White Sox, Len Casper.
Let's do it.